On a serious note, are these? I've put my AirPods in. Are they any good?
I think you look down with kids, Jez.
No, I meant for sound quality, you knob.
I mean, I think they're fine, Jez, but your sound was fine before.
Yeah, I think they look well cool.
Ordered! Send Moorhouse to save the house! Come on, the house!
I hope you weren't sledging the earphones, because I've got them as well.
Well, you would, because you're trendy like me.
Exactly.
Oh, you're looking cool, Motty. How's it going?
Yeah, good, mate. Good. Just got back from a family dinner. We just had a lovely Italian around the corner at Stefano's. Very nice.
Stefano's. You've still got that northern accent, I see, that northern English accent. Biggest six in world.
Biggest six in world.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Housecast, Lowerhouse Cricket Club's legendary podcast. Believe it or not, we've reached 100. It's even more than mine and Blez's years on this planet, or it seems it. So, first of all, Joe Martin, thanks very much for joining us on this prestigious occasion, 100 episodes. Did you ever think we'd get here?
Well, not after that first one where I was talking about how I don't like jacket potatoes.
I can't remember how that came about, but it does seem a long time ago.
I think I was describing what I had for my tea, and then I explained this isn't interesting, but I just explained why I thought the jacket potatoes were too potato-y, so you can't eat them.
Was it there though?
Right.
Yeah, it was. But 100 episodes, and I've just had Stato from the Housecast, who does all the research for it. Adam has worked out we've had 70,000 listens.
It's incredible, really, isn't it? I think.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
For a little cricket club.
Yeah. Yeah, far and wide all over the world. The world has gone mad, Gary. But let's. I know they've all trimmed down a little bit since COVID finished, and we've all got busier. But to have an episode 100 that we've all done, I think we should all be quite proud of it. And then the fact that the guest we've got on tonight, I think it probably it deserves the 100th episode to get this lad on after what he's done in the past and what he's currently doing. But so, Joe, thanks very much. You're all wrapped up, and let's have a look. Yeah. You've got your scarf on, you've got a jacket on, you've got your bobble hat on, and you've got a rug on.
Yeah.
So what did you get for Christmas then, Joe? Give me a clue.
None of these items.
A bobble hat, a rug, and a scarf.
So you bought them, is what you're saying?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm at the height
You went out and chose them. I'm
at the height of fashion, Gaz.
Well, if you got them for Christmas, Gary, I reckon they were naughty.
There's no picking on little Joe.
It's fine. I can hold my own. I need to be attacked.
Character building.
Have you got the heating on in the Joe Martin room?
No, because it's coordinated from the pub room.
Right. Okay.
But I would say, Jez, this is I would say in the top 5 episodes that I've been excited about.
Oh, that's lovely to say. And people don't even know who the guest is yet.
No.
Little Joe Martin's excited. So anyway, from Little Joe Martin, let's go to Little Gav with his legs. He's got his legs out of Gav. He's got scarf in sight, not a bob hat. He's got bare legs and bare feet. How you going, Gav?
Yeah, good, thanks, Jez. Good, thank you.
Tell us about Burnley. How excited are you about how they're playing in Burnley football?
They've been superb, yeah. It's really good. They were good on Saturday. Tough game, Comtry, good side. Roll on to the next one now, Friday night, West Brom at home. Another big game. Yeah. Probably be a sellout, 20,000 on. That's Friday. And then I'll be round at Phil Haggerty's on Saturday watching boxing. So, good weekend coming up.
Can't beat it. Is the bubble going to burst at all? This is, I'm not normally a negative person, but sometimes, what's your thoughts?
It's one of them, Jez. I mean, it's as everyone always says, it's a tough league and it is competitive. And we do have some tough games coming up. West Brom on Friday night. They're coming into some form. So it's going to be tough and plenty of good sides, but we're one of them. you know. And you know, we'll probably sign a striker in January.
Yeah, they're talking about that, aren't they? Some big players, yeah.
So, you know, we're doing really well, and it's just really exciting at the moment, mate. So looking forward to Friday night.
As a neutral, Jez.
Yeah.
As a neutral, I would say that Burnley are the best team in that league.
Thanks for that, Joe. So the next co-host, Gary Moorhouse. Gary, welcome, and thanks very much for helping out all these 100 episodes. You've been invaluable. How's it going down there, Gaz?
Yeah, good, Jez. Evening all. Yeah, pretty good, Jez. Bit on chilly side, unfortunately, but yeah, we're doing all right. 100 episodes. I mean, that's mental. It's mental. You'd have got severely long odds on that, and I think it's fair to say, right, sound cheesy about it all. If we weren't getting those 70,000 downloads or whatever we've had, Adams scours the world for, then we wouldn't be doing them, would we? So, you know, the fact that folk listen and enjoy them, we get some pretty decent feedback. You know, I think it has made us carry on.
100%, Gary, because there's some time. I mean, tonight they'd have been queuing round block to come and chat to this lad that we've got on. But some of them are a little bit difficult sometimes when you're busy, you've been working all day and it's midweek. And, you know, we used to do them at weekends, didn't we? And when everyone was fed up, we did to Andrew MacDonald and Ryan and Curtis Hazard getting the time difference right. So it is, you know, all credit to you lads and pulling it together. So no, you're right. 100. It is crazy. It is mad. So we'll move on to our guest. This lad, you know, he's a top person, top individual from where he's played, wherever he's gone in the world. We've played cricket with him for one season, played against him for 3 seasons, but no one has a bad word about him. Very competitive. Loves the game to bits, and it'd be so interesting to see how his career developed since his actual first-class cricket career finished. So without more of ado, can I welcome Matthew Mott? Motty, thanks very much for coming on the Housecast.
Hey, cheers, Jez. Good to be on here, mate, finally. I think we had a false start, maybe episode 96 or something like that, but I'm on. Yeah. So I'm delighted to be here.
Yeah, we did. And I remember you were in Australia when we were messing each other, trying to get you on just in between one of the lockdowns, and it just didn't work out. But for the benefit of the listeners, right from the outset, Motty's it's always been the case. Yeah, I want to come on. Yeah, please. Yeah, I'll do it at any stage. So we really appreciate it, Motty. Thanks ever so much for all your time. We've had a little chat prior to the recording side of this starting. All we want to do is have a good catch up and a reminisce and a laugh and a joke. Gav's on here to come in with some questions. Gary's on here. Gary played quite a lot in that season that you played for us, so I'm sure we can reminisce about the season. I've done some research and it's mind-boggling looking back. I can't remember probably 80% of it. And then we've got Joe Martin that we've just established, who was 4 when you pro'd for us, Motty. But I'm sure you can remember Joe Martin, a 4-year-old, can you?
Yeah, he was a very promising junior there. He strutted around. I know that. He didn't quite have the bobble hat on and the glasses, but you knew he was something special back then.
Yeah, for definite. So as we build into the podcast, Motty, and very briefly, and I never, you know, we played very closely together. But I don't, or if we did talk about it, I can't remember it. But just talk us through for the benefit of the listeners and the benefit of people who don't know anything about Lowerhouse or about your career. Just tell us how you started in cricket from a real young age when you were playing in the juniors and you were looking promising before you got anywhere near first class. How did that go for you?
Yeah, I guess like most Australian kids, you grew up idolising your older brother, and my older brother was 7 years older than me, and I didn't really have a choice. We just turned up and played cricket. And Dad was he struggled a bit as a cricketer. He was a struggling leg spinner, but always really supportive. We played a lot of backyard cricket, and I think just like every kid, just want to be as good as your older brother. And I remember my parents talk often about when I won my first trophy at cricket, and my brother at that stage was obviously older, had 50 to his name. And I went up to Mum and Dad and said, between us, we've got 51 trophies, And so that was the big thing at that age, just that, to combine the trophies. But yeah, look, I just think cricket's been amazing for me in terms of the places it's taken me. Obviously, Lancashire League is a big part of it. But as an 18-year-old, I went to Scotland, paid my own way to go there as an amateur cricketer, and it just opened my eyes up. And where I am now, I'm just so grateful for where I've finished up. But I have a great affinity for the UK and the opportunities that it's afforded me. It's some of the best years of my life was playing league cricket. Just turning up and seeing guys that it wasn't their main job, but they loved playing cricket. And for me as a professional cricketer, it was quite a realisation and a remembrance that cricket is a game that you grew up and just loved playing, and every opportunity I had, I've just savoured.
See, we've exchanged a few emails, and I've done a little bit of research, but I do remember the Scotland connection, because I think I don't know if you played for us or when you were at Church or Roxall, you went back up there. So you're only 18 and you're in the UK going to playing for Scotland. So how did that come about? How did you get that contract in Scotland?
We were lucky enough at Palm Beach Common, which was my local club on the Gold Coast, that we had a guy named Grant Stanley who'd literally done 18 years back and forth chasing the summer. And I remember when I was about 16 or 17, he said, I'd like to take you over there as my amateur to air in Scotland. And I had no idea what he was talking about at that stage. And trying to convince my parents that it was a good idea was a hard sell. But I'd finished a year of university. And I was sort of looking like you'd call over here a gap year. And it was just an amazing opportunity. And my parents got on well with Stanners and said, yeah, go for your life. And I went over there. I had no idea what to expect. I think I turned up about 8 weeks before the season, which was crazy. It was absolutely freezing. I couldn't feel my lungs for the first 3 weeks. And as a young kid from the Gold Coast, it was just an eye-opener. And, it was the best time I could have spent in my life. I grew up so much. I had to fend for myself. I had to cook my own meals. And, I'd never done that before. So I look back on that so fondly. I've got some great friends from those times there, and been in contact ever since. But something I think was, and I look back on, for my own family, for, my son Jai, who's over here in Wales at the moment. But the opportunity to travel is something you should never take for granted.
And as you say, 17, 18-year-old, you go to your parents and say, look, I'm going over to this place that is from the Gold Coast to Scotland. With all respect, there's lovely places in Scotland, and it's a lovely area, but it's chalk and cheese as far as temperatures and understanding. How you've said you've got some lifelong friends up there. How welcoming was it when you first got into Scotland? Was it that welcoming, or did you have to find your own way in life?
No, they were incredibly welcoming. I think, Stanners is obviously a very popular bloke. So, they knew that if he brought someone over that they'd fit in pretty well. And, he didn't take just anyone over there. Over the time he was there, I think he hand-selected people he wanted to go. But, I lived with a guy named Chunter, whose dad was very, big in the local community. He owned a couple of bowling alleys. And we lived in this renovated sort of I think cottage that was amazing. It had heated floors. We had a maid and all that. And I think I paid 10 quid a week as part of my rent. So I was pretty well looked after. I worked at a garden centre. I remember I got £2 an hour back in the day, and that I felt like a rock star at the end of the week when I got my 80 quid. And that would buy you a lot of beers back then. So I was pretty happy.
Certainly in Scotland, yeah, it would, and you would be people who up there that would have a beer with you. So that's 8 years before you came to us and been at church. So, at what sort of age was it obvious? And I know it's a difficult question for you to answer, but when was it obvious that you were going to be a first-class cricketer or a professional cricketer that could play cricket, first-class cricket?
Yeah, it's a great question, mate, because I grew up, I reckon, from about the age of 13 or 14. My father was a cricket tragic in terms of following Queensland cricket, which at that stage had never won the Sheffield Shield. It was the least successful first-class team in the history, I think, of the world. So 70 years without a single title, and it was almost like this holy grail to win the Sheffield Shield. We used to listen together on the radio after school about, Queensland falling over the line, and missing out in Sheffield Shield finals for years. So it was inbred in me that I wanted to play for Queensland. And I was lucky enough with another Lowerhouse professional, Sean Flegler, to make our debut on the same in the same game. But I honestly never pictured it as a money-making thing. I never thought it was a profession. To me, it was a passion. It was something that I was all I wanted to do was play for Queensland. And I often, every birthday, when you make your silent wish, was like, I just want to play one game for Queensland and I'll be happy, one game. And then, of course, you play your one game and then you want to play more. But throughout my career, I obviously had to change to Victoria about 4 years in because some bloke from Queensland got dropped, a guy named Matthew Hayden. And at that stage, he wasn't going to play for Australia again. And my course in the Queensland team was quite close. So I made the decision to move. It was probably the best decision for me personally. But, to leave my native Queensland was a really hard move.
And what year would that have been? I mean, I have researched it, but I'm not excited that you're on. I'm not sure when it was. When did you leave Queensland?
So I left in 98 to go down there. So I had 4 years with Queensland and 6 years with Victoria. And I played probably my best cricket with Victoria, but I'll never. I would love to have stayed in Queensland. That was where my heart was and all that. But I think it was a very good move for me. And probably when I look back on my coaching career, the fact that I was prepared, to get outside that comfort zone and move to another state, it's served me well in my coaching days, and it's made me aware of that. You need to sometimes move for opportunities.
Yeah, I guess so. And it's not like you was a 16, 17, 18-year-old. You'd establish yourself in the state cricket there. As you said, Matthew Hayden's coming down. He's probably going to take a shot from you, and you had the balls to go and do that at Victoria. Were you married then? Were you weren't with anyone at that time when you moved, so that would make it a little bit easier, I guess?
Yeah, it was. It was definitely back in those days. Single man, and so the ability to move was a lot easier. But I left family and friends in the comfort of all that. Yeah. On the Gold Coast, I had a very, very good established lifestyle up there. So I mean, it was at the time it was a big move. I think it's since I've made that move, it's become a lot more common that players move states. But it was very rare back in those days that players would pick up and move for opportunity. And it was around the same time that the contracts came in Australia. Like when you said there before about being a professional, when I first played for Queensland, you literally just got match payments. There was no security around contracts or anything like that. So my first contract for Victoria was, I think, $15,000, which is probably about £5,000 now. And the players these days are earning a hell of a lot more than that.
Yeah, and you mentioned Flegs. We've had Flegs on the podcast, so the listeners who don't know anything about the Lancashire League or Lowerhouse Cricket Club, you've come on to listen to Matthew Mott. Flegs, absolute diamond, fantastic. Cheeky little left-arm spinner, could smash it when he wanted to, was far more aggressive than he ever looked. And you were almost a bit of a cheeky partnership, really, when you got together, when you were proing for us and Flegs was there. And I'm right in thinking, I'm jumping ahead here, and we will come back to this, but I think it's worth pointing out you ended up working together with the Australian ladies cricket. Is that right?
Yeah, it's amazingly we just always ended up in the same spot, Flegs and I. Like, I moved to Sydney. He'd moved to Sydney a couple of years later. We moved to Melbourne around the same time. Yeah. Incredible, parallels within our journeys. And I remember, and you'll find this funny, is when he was playing for Lowerhouse and I was playing for Church, the joke was that he was playing for Toilet House. And I used to give him a bit of grief about playing for Toilet House. And then he left and literally said, would you take over I can't fulfill my contract. Will you take it over? I was like, yeah, I'll take it over. So I ended up at Toilet House, and it was a great year. I mean, you sent through some stats earlier. It was statistically my worst year in the Lancashire League, but I had an amazing time there. We had such great fun. All those times back in the club after games, it was incredibly fun time, and I look back with very fond memories.
Exactly the same here, Motty. The game has completely changed. It's a lot more professional in league cricket now, as far as the amateurs go, the way they approach things. We all worked our nuts off, and it was so good to have someone like yourself and Flegs. We'd with others, Craig Light and Cameron Williamson, and obviously then Ryan Andrew later in certainly in the end of my career. But it was fantastic to have these young Australians coming over. We've got another little guest that's just sneaked on, but before we introduce that individual, Gary, is there anything you want to just talk through, or any points you want to clarify around Motty's early career and how he's developed from Queensland to Victoria?
He covered it all, Jez. I mean, I think that was the one point I was going to pick up on, was that sort of flags sort of from an early sort of time. I mean, you must have met and know hundreds of people around your sort of cricketing career since, and yet to sort of follow somebody like, well, not following, but sort of crop up together in different roles in different places time and again is quite strange, especially, you know, you're both in Lowerhouse pros. So that was the only point really, Jez, I was going to pick up on. But
yeah,
you covered that well.
Yeah, it was so. And I don't know. We're looking at the stats today, Gary, and I've looked at them over the last couple of weeks, and I'll come into it in a minute why me and someone else started looking at the stats in a certain circumstances where we had a lot of time on our hands. And it was incredible. I just couldn't remember Motty and flags, and it was always sunny. It just seemed, and that's probably a psychological thing because you're happy and you're enjoying that company. But it's clear that in 1998, it must have been a shit summer. Looking at some of the figures and looking at, even, you know, you brought it up, Motty. I wasn't particularly going to bring it up that it was your worst season in the Lancashire League, but the amateurs, you know, the runs that didn't get scored was quite incredible.
It was that stupid season though, Jez, wasn't it? Where we were 55 overs in declare. I mean, there's a few tales around that. I can remember there's a couple of Pearler games where Motty, it was hilarious about some of those results that were going on, but we'll come on to them. But no, I think going back to Flegs, like prior to that, in those seasons when Motty were at church, Flegs were heavily focused, really serious, weren't he? We loved his cricket, wanted to do a great job as a professional, wanted to, you know, wherever we were playing. And but when we came up against church, he was on another level. He just wanted to outdo Motty, or whatever it was.
Yeah, so competitive it was. It was good fun. Joe Martin,
I do remember, Jez, when I was playing against Lowerhouse, and I went to slog Flegs early on, and it went straight up. And Stanny was running around like a ballerina, did about 3 pirouettes and dropped the ball. And Flegs went absolutely nuts. He went ballistic. And then he started getting stuck into me. And I remember afterwards, a few of you boys had said to him, I thought this Mott fella was one of your mates. He goes, yeah, he's one of my good mates. But you would have thought, we were worst enemies after that day. But we drove home together and had a beer together. But when we were on the field, it was super competitive. Yeah,
there's a game at Lowerhouse where we played you, and you were on about 80 on. It might have been the same game where Stanley had already dropped you. I don't know, but Jez were bowling, and I think Flegs were like at cover maybe, or maybe a straightish cover, extra cover, something like that. And you same again, you hit it back over, and he Flegs legged it, pushed Jez out at where we were bowling to go and get this caught ball, just to make sure that he caught you out.
Yeah. It was, and we would definitely come on to it. We could go on forever with this. You were both so similar characters, but when the pressure was on, Motty, you were always a lot calmer and cooler. Flegs, you could see, you know, the amount of times he'd walk in the dressing room, and he did it twice that I saw, and they weren't cheap, weren't his kookaburras? And he'd walk in and he would hit the floor until it literally broke in half. He would smash it into the floor. He was crazy lad. Joe Martin, you were only 4 years old. Is there anything you want to just bring up whilst Motty's here, just for his early career?
No, it's really interesting how everything has panned out, and I think that I didn't know how you got to Lowerhouse. I didn't know that you brought up church first. So it'll be really interesting to hear what you think about what you first thought when you saw Lowerhouse playing at church, and then what it was like when you eventually pro'd for Lowerhouse, I think.
Yeah, I literally didn't know a lot about the Lancashire League beforehand. I played in North Staff, South Cheshire League before that, and obviously in Scotland. But the church contract was probably the first serious contract I'd ever signed. It was like a decent amount of money, and I was playing first class cricket at the time. It was an eye opener for me. I'd never seen a league like that, and obviously you saw some really other great professionals around at the time. Likes of Joe Scuderi, Roger Harper, and guys like that. So it was a bit of I was pinching myself saying, have I really got this gig? And then I signed on to play for Church for the next year. For whatever reason, couldn't fulfill contract. I think I had to stay back in Queensland at the time. And then the opportunity came up, as I said before. Flegs couldn't fulfill his contract the next year. And I just thought it was a great opportunity. I had a Canadian girlfriend at the time. We both thought it was a great idea to go over there. We had a fantastic time there. And I just thought that the people at Lowerhouse, it was a good time in our lives. There was a lot of couples at the club at the time, and they embraced both of us wholeheartedly. Yeah, we just drifted in a great lifestyle there and lived in Burnley and watched a bit of footy and had a great time.
Excellent.
Yeah, it was. We're just looking back because it was 96, wasn't it, when you were at Church, and you look at the amount of runs you got. 1,100 runs at 60 odd, and you dominated. Gav, anything you want to just bring up before we bring the guest in?
Just wanted to touch on Motty. You mentioned that you went up to Scotland as a young lad when you were 18. How did that develop your game? Because I'd imagine that the wickets were a tad different to what they were back home. So how did it develop your game coming over to the UK, playing on those type of wickets? And how did you develop from an early start?
Yeah, great question. I actually think it developed me more as a person than as a cricketer. Like, I'd gone over there, used to playing on Australian wickets, and then we played on some absolute puddings. That year in particular was a really cold, wet year in Scotland, which is probably not a great surprise to anyone on the podcast. But we only finished, I think, half the league games that year that were scheduled to play. I also batted at 4, which I wasn't used to batting. I was used to opening, and so I had very few opportunities to actually play. And we played a lot of friendlies, and back then, even before T20, we used to play 18 8-ball overs, midweek games. Like, I think it was on a Tuesday and a Thursday night. So I played a bit of cricket, but essentially I missed a lot of cricket as well. And for me, I went over there not knowing a lot. It was probably my first year drinking as well. And I reckon I put on 10 kilos from the time I was over there. So I don't think my parents recognised me. Some people call it the Heathrow injection, but I literally put on quite a bit of weight. I had no idea how to train, anything like that. So when I got back, I was found out a bit. I was in some youth squads back in Queensland, and you can imagine that, like, I'd gone over there and I came back quite unfit and not really up to scratch. So it was an eye opener for me on how you need to manage yourself as a professional cricketer, and train when people aren't watching and stuff like that. So the years after that, it was a great opportunity for me to go, well, okay, there's no one telling me I have to train, but I know what it looks like when I need to get back and I need to be fit enough. So for me, it was a life experience more than anything, and I learned a lot about myself and having to look after myself without your parents, telling you what to do or coaches telling you what to do. So I developed a lot of self-sufficiency from that year over there.
So that's interesting, that. So, because obviously when you were coming over, in those years, league cricket were awash with young Australians, weren't it? And perhaps not so young Australians. So I would imagine there are a lot of young lads like yourself in the same position, learning a lot of life lessons. So when you look at it, fast forward to today, when there aren't a lot of Australians in league cricket, for whatever reason, do you think that there's a lot of promising young lads back home who are missing out on something? Whether it might be technical, batting on different wickets, or whether it might be life lesson. And do you think that states back home are missing a trick by not allowing young lads to come over and experience everything that, being a pro in the UK has got to offer?
Yeah, I agree 100%. Well, to be honest, it was not their fault. I think for about a decade there, with the way the rules were in terms of getting visas into the country, it was quite tricky for young Australian players to come over. I don't think it was on their behalf. I think the rules were set like that. But I actually think in the last 2 years it's relaxed quite a bit again. I don't know. I don't fully understand it, but whether that's because of the Brexit or whatever, it's a very different rule. But one of our good friends from back home, who's got a 19-year-old son, came over last year, played league cricket, and I was so excited by the fact that he got to come over here. He's an 18-year-old, playing cricket. He just thought he won lotto by coming over here playing cricket, having a few pints on a Friday night with the boys and Saturday. And it reminded me so much of my own journey. But for a good decade, I think that was taken away from young Australians in terms of getting visas to get into the country. And I genuinely hope that continues. I think it's a win-win. I think you learn so much about other people. You develop relationships. And also, I had so many guys that I played league cricket come out to Australia and, play lower levels of cricket and have the time of their lives as well, get jobs as, plumbers or whatever it was, but come out and just have an amazing journey in their own right. So hopefully that continues. I'm not sure how it all works legally around that, but I really think it was the best years of my life, that's for sure.
It is, Gav, and that, what a great question, around the youngsters coming over. Us older ones now think, it'll never happen again. He can't be doing this. But a lot of it is the visas and the permits. So let's see, you'll never get, the test players coming back into the league. But who knows, as younger players, we could get them in. Without further ado, let's just move on to the next guest that's going to come in and just maybe ask a couple of questions or raise a few points. Myself and this lad have known each other for a few years, and over the last couple of weeks, he's been laid up a little bit. He's been cropped. So I've been sat with him and talking about the when Motty played in the Lancashire League. So without giving too much away, let me introduce Matt Hope, who was the captain in '98 when Motty pro'd. And he's told me some really funny stories about the build-up to the season. Hiya, Matt. Welcome.
Hi, Jez. Hi, lads. You okay?
Hi, Matt.
All right there, Matt.
Hi, Matt.
Hello. Hi, Motty. How are you, pal?
Good, mate. How are you?
Yeah, very good, mate. Really good. Thank you. Very good. Very good. Great to see you, mate. And congratulations on the England win. Fantastic to see that, mate. I can remember watching it. It was actually the morning of the Blackburn game, and we were watching it in a pub in town centre. And there were quite a few lads there. Jack, my lad, were there, and quite a few lads there. And after they'd won, there were a big picture. Well, it zoomed in on you and the backroom staff and you there. And I said to Jack and his mate, I said, have you ever slept on a settee in Australia? Said, no, have you? I said, yeah, for a fortnight. So what a laugh that was. I said, so it's just, how things, like from what you're saying, best times of your life, Matt, then the times we've had with guys like you and others that Jez has mentioned, it was just unbelievable, and to look back on it and think, you know what I mean? It's fantastic. It's great to see. So, and thank you for coming on.
Cool, mate. What have you done to yourself?
I had a bit of a fall in August. I'm getting to that age now where you just call them falls, don't you? And I end up breaking my wrist and having to have it wired and pinned and things. So that all went all fine. It happened at the end of November. And then 2nd of January, on the Monday, 2nd of January, it just got really painful and really sore. To cut long story short, I ended up getting an infection in it and I had sepsis. So I was in hospital for 8 days.
Right.
But hooked up to an antibiotic drip and stuff like that. And that's where Jez kind of came to see me laid up in bed with all wires and everything hanging out. No, they weren't. I was sat there doing some work. But I was in there. I was in there for 8 days, but it's all good now. Hopefully get this off tomorrow and start getting the physio on it again. All right.
I think it's worth mentioning, Matt. I think it's worth mentioning because if other people might think you're walking on from the lane ends drunk, Matt was actually playing golf and he's on a slope. I think Nelson Golf Club, and he just leaned over the wrong way, and from people who watched, he just rolled down and rolled down and rolled down.
No, that was time before I hurt my shoulder, Jez. That was another fall I had.
Another fall.
This one, I was pissed in the hotel room.
Norman Wisdom.
Yeah, and as I was, I know it was. I was there with Diane and Mia. As I was trying to navigate my way to the toilet in the middle of the night, I knocked a heater off the wall. So as that's falling off the wall in front of me, and I'm trying to dodge it, and I didn't dodge it. I fell over it and landed on my wrist. And as I say, but I will like to say, Motty, I still played cricket day after and got 4 for 36 off 12 overs. So
Never in doubt. Never in doubt.
Never in doubt. So Matt, we had a good reminisce around that season, and Gary, you played in it, and Motty, you were brand new to it. Matt, just briefly reiterate the story as to why on earth the Lancashire League adopted the system, and just briefly explain what the rules were at that time and what happened the year before.
Yeah. No, well, I can't remember, Gary. Were you the captain the year before? Was this my first year? I think I'd captained the year before with Flegs, haven't I?
No, with
Corrie.
Yeah, 97 was Corrie, yeah.
Right, okay,
yeah.
So I remember you did Flegs, that great, lovely Australian. You left me with that wanker Jordan to captain it there, didn't you? So basically, I was first year as captain in '97, and then after that season came to an end, and with the things that had going with it, and then we got called to a meeting, me and Dave Wren at the time, and it was organised by Peter Brown from Burnley. And I'll never forget it. I can't remember. The league exec were definitely there, and I think all the other clubs, they must have been there. I can't particularly remember them all being there. We were sat upstairs in the Burnley bar, and it came up with this proposal of playing some sort of timed cricket, and he had it all down. And obviously, he was a very intelligent man and very businesslike, and did everything properly. And all his presentations going on about how he thought that if we did this, it would generate more first-class cricketers and make better young cricketers. Basically, what he was saying is that he wanted to have a 100-over game. The side batting first could bat a maximum of 55 overs, and then the side batting second would get 45, or whether they were bowled out. If they were bowled out in 40 overs, the side batting second got 60 overs, or if the side batting first declared, they got the remaining overs. So there was always 100 overs played. So knowing this was league cricket and amateur cricket on the wickets that we played, I'd like to see the stats, and we didn't get time to go through that. How many sides who batted first either were bowled out where you needed extra overs or declared? And I bet, there was a vast majority of the side batting first batted 55 overs. So you're then trying to play the game, having to score the same amount of runs. They didn't reduce the total, but off 10 less overs. So obviously I was sat in this meeting and said, this just doesn't make sense. He was saying that it would put a value on your wicket, and if you were batting second and you'd lost your best amateur and your pro, it would teach and encourage the other lads to value the wicket and bat time, which I was saying, absolute nonsense. If you're going to just shut up shop and not try and get out, then it's just going to make for absolutely boring cricket, and no one's going to benefit from it. And that's actually what happened. But it must have gone through so fast, because it was definitely in between, because the year of Corrie, we played 50 overs each. So it was definitely talked about after September and put into place for that season. And I'm fairly sure that a lot of other people were having the same comments as I was saying, and me and Dave Wren was saying at the meeting. That just doesn't make sense. You can't, if someone's batting 55 overs and expecting the side to bat 45 overs, then it's just it's not a fair game, and I just don't think it's going to encourage it. And it didn't. It only lasted for 1 year.
Matt, there were a think tank put together at the end of the previous season, and there were 3 or 4 players got put on it. Jack Simpson, Mark Lomas, I think Michael Brown, but it might have been Peter. But I think Michael Brown were involved somewhere along the line.
Michael's younger than me. Definitely Peter.
Right, Peter then, and there was somebody else I can't remember. And then there were people, I think maybe like, I'll say Ali Comrade, he probably wasn't, but there was some well-respected then club, people who had been in the game and knew a lot about league cricket. And they came up with it, and that was the meeting that was then presented to all the captains and chairman or whatever, club chairman as a fait accompli, saying this is what we're going to do.
Yeah, you might be right. I do remember Lomas and Jackson. Gary, you're right. Yeah, I can't remember everybody being there, but it must have been for when I went to the meeting. And like I say, it was presented to us as though this is what we're doing. It wasn't like, what do you think, lads? And let's have another chat about it in 6 weeks when you've had some more time to think about it. It was almost, this is what we're doing. But Peter Brown was very, very influential in this, very influential. Whether that was because his lads wanted to have a first-class career and ended up both having decent first-class careers. But I think they'd have done that if they'd have played 20 overs, 70 overs, or 80 overs. I don't think that was anything to do with the format of cricket that we played for that year in the Lancashire League. And it was soon dropped, weren't it?
Yeah, I think probably the valid objective of trying to do something different than rather 4 points and a 1 bonus point, and try and make it slightly more interesting. But it was just utterly misguided. It was complete bonkers.
Yeah, and it was just the same. What tended to happen, and without me looking at the scorecard, which I've done with Jez, I one game stuck in my mind. I don't know whether you can remember it, Motty. We played Baker at home, and I want to say they got 160 or 55 overs, and we fell.
190. That's the one I was talking about earlier.
Did they? Sorry, right. They got 100. Yeah, and Motty got 100.
It
was out near the end, and we fell 8, 10, whatever short.
Two.
Was it that close?
We were 2 short off 10 overs fewer and got same match draw on 4 points apiece.
4 points apiece, yeah. But I was looking at that and thinking that was the one that stuck out in my mind. But when me and Jez have gone through it, there's a couple where we've done exactly the same. So it wasn't just one way that we got shafted on it. There was probably more that we.
But that were early on. I think that Baker game was fairly early on in the season.
It was, mate. It was.
And I think that set the tone. Then you were just, of how most captains were gonna play it.
Yeah.
And it was that's what it ended up almost stalemate. But Motty, and I can't remember stuff these days. But when you came, you never had a song and dance about this or anything really, even when at Rockstall. Can you remember that format? And can you remember if we had any tactics of how we were going to manage it and how you were going to back? Because you were getting all our runs. Can you remember anything about that season and the format of the way it went?
No, there was a good history lesson there again. I was listening in, but I, as I said, I played in Scotland. I played in Stoke-on-Trent, and there were always those rules. So I was actually quite used to those rules, and that's what attracted me to the Lancashire League originally, was the fact that it was win-loss. And so I guess in my own mind, I probably reconciled that it was like, reverting back to some of those traditional rules. But, the guys are right. Like, it's a flawed format where you're trying to get a result in 100 overs. I mean, some of the test matches recently would suggest otherwise, where teams are getting knocked over pretty quickly. But usually on good wickets, if people don't want to get out in 45 overs, you're hard pressed to get them out if they're not trying to score. So that's what I always loved about the Lancs League, was it was like a straight win loss. And I guess the big conundrum back in the day was a lot of the pros bowled 25 overs, which I think it's a difficult one, because if you sign a batting pro, they can bat the whole time. So why can't, if you sign a bowling pro, they bowl half the time? But for me, it probably held back a few young bowlers in the day. I think being able to see 4 or 5 bowlers bowling is an advantage, I think, in terms of youth development, stuff like that. But it was always a tricky one, because if you signed an overseas bowling pro, you didn't want him only bowling 10 overs.
No.
So that would have lent himself maybe to signing more all-rounders or batting pros. So it's always a tricky balance, I guess. I actually think some of the leagues have adopted it, but maybe 15 overs from your pro is about the right amount.
Yeah, that's what they've actually done for the last few years, haven't they?
Yeah.
So we've now got that, and I think one bowler can bowl 14, and the rest maximum of 12. So you've got to use 4 bowlers.
Mm.
One of them might only bowl 4 or 5 overs, but you've got to use 4 bowlers. So that's definitely right.
Yeah.
You're right there, Motty. It would have gone down the route. You wouldn't have there'd been no bowling pros signed at all. But from the same perspective, a batting pro can get out first ball. Exactly. If a bowling pro gets smacked for 4 first over, he can bowl another 23. So it did. Yeah. Don't get me wrong. I think we had pros that bowled the 25 overs, but it was much better when you know. And I think you'll learn more as a cricketer that. I'm going to see him off, whether it be the pro or the top amateur. He's only got 2 overs left. Let's wait till the 4th bowler comes on. Just like the guys doing one-day cricket now, they always target someone, don't they? And I think it's a little bit better now, where if you've got the strength in depth and got your good 4 bowlers, that is where the best sides are around, really. They haven't got a bowler that someone's going to try and take to pieces. So I think it's much better now than when you have people bowling 25. Certainly Roger Harper.
Yeah, it is, Matt. Matt, you're 100% right. Joe Martin, go on. What you thinking?
I obviously spend a lot of time with Les, driving him to games, and I've asked him lots of questions that I don't think he appreciates, but never mind. And he hated the format, and he couldn't get his head around it. And I've only just realised that Motty probably wouldn't have seen Les bat at his best or bat with him when he was, because either side of that year he was scoring 600-700 runs, and in that year I think he scored like 270 runs, which is incredible for Blaise, really. So,
and it was we saw that, Joe, and Nicky got 230, and they were both regular. Nicky 400-500, Blaise 600-700. And it was, I was gobsmacked, and that's another reason why Motty didn't have a bad season. I think it was wet, and if you batted second and were facing 10 overs less than anybody else, it's going to look, and you have to play differently, don't you? So I don't think it was a fact that they were all in horrendous form or had really bad seasons. I just think it was the format lent to half of some of those figures.
It was, and it's awkward, Motty played for Church 2 years prior to that, and then at Rottenstall when they changed it back. But I think it's worth mentioning now, Motty, you've enough on your plate without having to research Lancashire Cricket League rules. At the moment, the last few years, it is really good. The way the point system is, the way people can bowl. I think that's about right, Joe Martin. You're still playing in it. It's just right. If you're very close to beating a side, you will end up with potentially 9 points if you bowl them out, and they could end up with 2. So I do feel, I might be a bit biased, but I do feel Lancashire League is in the right place at the moment. Do you think, Joe?
Yeah, definitely. You want. We're not playing Test match cricket, so you want a result at the end. When you finish playing on a Sunday, you want to know who's won, who's lost, and then you can crack on. I just think that I know they play it in the Liverpool comp and stuff, but I just think that it's just really negative cricket in the end. And it's,
I don't know if I'm talking rubbish here, to be fair, but I'd be interested to look in the last, since we've had those rules. Obviously, it's not the best side wins the league 99 times out of 100, but it'd be interesting to see those sides that do win the league when they've lost. I bet they've got more bonus points than the side that come second.
Yeah, definitely.
By staying in games and by not getting hammered, Joe, they stay in games, don't they? They lose when they're bowling and they're 7 or 8 down, or they get within 15, 10, 20 of that and pick up the 4-5 points regular, and that's part of the difference, isn't it, between winning the league or not?
And that's a sign of a good team as well. If you can get close and not collops.
And not throw it away. So even now, we are encouraged to stay in the game. And if you know you can't win, because I don't think anybody thinks that, but you're encouraged to get as close as you can to their score rather than thinking and just tossing it off and thinking, we'll be under all right, let's get it far.
Yeah, and I think that's even more apparent with the promotion and relegation, because
probably, yes.
A single point can keep you up. I know it's, when you get 12, it doesn't matter, but
that's one run or one wicket in a certain game, isn't it?
Certainly, and if you if you push for a wicket or you try and get that extra 10 runs closer, then I think that's promoting good cricket in the end.
Yeah, positive cricket, isn't it? Even when you get beat,
Without a doubt. I mean, I'm sure you've looked through some of the scorecards, Motty. You were always in the runs for us, 107 against Bay Cup and was great. So, and the game at Church, when we played Church at home in August, they got 153 and I think 53 overs, and we won 5-1 or 40 overs, and you've 95 not out. And I think you ran me out right at the end there, if I remember rightly. Can you remember that?
No, I can't. But it was a pleasing surprise. I thought I'd never got a run against Bay Cup. So when you said I got 100, that was good news to me, because I remember playing against Roger up there at Bay Cup, and I thought I was playing on the moon. Like he used to spin it square, and he'd have a strong leg side field. I didn't know where my next run was coming from. So the fact that we got 100, I got 100 against them, I was pretty happy with that.
Yeah, Brad White was a pro that year.
He weren't pro, Motty.
Yeah, I did notice that as well. But still,
but it was still there, Colt.
Yes.
The saying was they always eat the young at their court, don't they? Eat the young.
They eat the young. Yeah, exactly. So Motty, just talk us through your summary of that year. It was very frustrating for us as amateurs, albeit we get on with it. We loved playing, and as you've said before, the social side and the practicing. Just give us I don't want to put you on the spot here, but a resume of what happened that year, and playing with the different amateurs and what the crowds were like. How did it come across for you?
I loved it, Jez. It was just, obviously, as we've spoken about, it wasn't my best year run-wise, but I think I got probably the most wickets I've ever got as well, by virtue of some of the wickets we played on. But I just remember sitting around that dressing room. It was like a goldfish bowl with the glass outside, and people walking past, and you and Stan and Matt and all the boys having a great time, just sitting around talking in the dressing room before we went in the bar. And those are the things that I remember most about every league club that I played at. It was not so much what happened on the field, but it was the camaraderie afterwards, and having a beer and sitting around and just talking about life. And it was an amazing time for me. I think I just enjoyed it immensely, and we cracked on in Burnley a few times and kicked on, had some really good nights. But to me, it was more about what happened, the hour after the game, where we just sat around and talked about the day that transpired, and the friendships that we had. And I haven't seen you blokes for a long time, but it seems like yesterday that we're just having the same conversations in the dressing room.
Order! Send Moorhouse to save the house.